Have you ever stopped to think about what the 12 disciples of Jesus really experienced? In this video, you will discover incredible stories about the life and death of these ordinary men who changed the world. Get ready to learn facts that the Bible did not fully reveal and understand the real price they paid for their faith. If you are facing doubts, fears, or persecutions in your walk, this video will strengthen you. Seeing how these men faced much greater challenges can renew your courage and confidence in Jesus. You will understand that their faith was not just an idea but a force that transformed their lives and can transform yours too. So, tell me, are you ready to discover how following Jesus can be an extraordinary mission, even in the most difficult moments? Do you want to be inspired by real examples of courage and total surrender? Stay until the end and see how the story of the disciples can change your life forever. Have you ever stopped to think about who the 12 disciples of Jesus were? They weren't perfect people or super gifted individuals. You know, they were ordinary people, street people, with their flaws, doubts, and limitations. But what made them special wasn't that. It was the courageous choice they made to follow Jesus Christ, with a faith that transformed them from within. And look, it wasn't easy. Imagine leaving behind family, work, and their entire known life just for a calling that, to many, seemed like madness. They accepted this calling with hearts full of hope and a courage that few can understand. The apostles' lives were turned upside down, full of challenges that tested their faith to the limit. These ordinary men faced brutal persecutions, painful betrayals like that of Judas himself, unjust imprisonments, cruel tortures, and for many, a far from comfortable death, all because of the Christian faith they carried in their hearts. It was a harsh journey, but full of testimonies that echo even today. By following this documentary, you will be surprised by stories that go far beyond the pages of the Bible, revealing the real lives of Jesus' followers, their challenges, and the courage they kept alive, even in the face of adversity. Get ready to know the human side of the 12 disciples and what made them give everything until the end. And look, at the end there is a powerful revelation that can change your way of seeing faith and the courage to follow a calling. It is something that stirs the soul and makes us reflect. Are we willing to give what they gave? So, since we're on this journey together, how about commenting now, "I believe in Jesus"? And of course, subscribe to the channel to keep diving into these incredible stories full of life lessons. It will be a path of transformation through faith that you won't want to miss. Now that you already know what's coming, stay tuned, because the story of each of the 12 disciples will reveal a bit of what it means to live and die with courage and faith, even when everything seems lost. Shall we start this journey together? Let's start with James, son of Zebedee, one of the first to respond to Jesus' call. Just imagine, he was a simple fisherman, used to the Sea of Galilee, with a daily life full of hard work. But on that day when Jesus walked along the water's edge and said, "Follow me," James didn't hesitate. He left everything, the boat, the nets, the family, and followed the Master. James was known for his fiery spirit, so much so that Jesus and the others nicknamed him Son of Thunder. He wasn't a calm man, but a man of action, with intense and sometimes impulsive faith. He was among the 3 disciples closest to Jesus, present at the most important moments, like the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, the transfiguration on the Mount, and Christ's agony in Gethsemane. James' path wasn't easy, and his end was tragic but extremely significant. He was the first of the disciples to be martyred, killed by order of King Herod Agrippa, around the year 44 AD. James' courage in the face of death, with serenity and unwavering faith, inspired even those who judged him, showing that true faith transforms even the fear of death into confidence.
His life and death reveals something profound. It wasn't personal qualities that made him a follower of Jesus, but the boldness to say yes to the call, even without knowing what lay ahead. James shows us that in faith, what matters is the commitment to follow, even if the path is difficult. This story of James' faith, courage, and surrender is just the beginning. Come with me, because the lives of the other disciples are also full of examples that will challenge what you think about following Jesus. Now, let's meet James, son of Alphaeus, also called James the Less. Unlike his namesake, he was more discreet, more reserved, and his story is a bit less known but no less important. Some say he could have been a cousin of Jesus, reminding us that faith often begins silently within the family. James the Less did not seek the spotlight or grand deeds. He was there, faithful, following Jesus, absorbing his teachings, and living his mission with humility. Perhaps that's why his journey teaches us something essential. Greatness isn't in the spotlight but in constant and silent surrender. After Pentecost, James was sent to Egypt, a place full of cultural and spiritual challenges. where Christianity was still an emerging seed. There his meekness and faith won hearts, but also aroused the anger of local priests, who imprisoned and martyred him. Even amid pain, James never stopped praying for his persecutors, an example of love and perseverance. His death, though cruel, spread a powerful message. True faithfulness is the one that endures even when no one is watching. James Deleuze reminds us that noise is not always a sign of impact. Sometimes it's the calm and constant voice that leaves eternal marks. His tomb became a symbol for the Christians of that region, a faith community born from the courage of a simple man who chose to follow Jesus with an open heart, even if the world didn't recognize his importance. So, are you ready to discover the story of the next disciple? Their journey continues to be surprising. Andrew, Peter's brother, was a simple man, a fisherman like many others, but with a restless heart in search of something greater. He was a disciple of John the Baptist before finding Jesus, and he was the first to recognize Jesus as the Messiah, calling his brother to also follow the Savior. Unlike many who seek recognition, Andrew worked behind the scenes, silently but with a deep zeal for bringing people to Christ. He was the one who pointed out the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish, showing the importance of an offering, no matter how small, when given with faith. After the resurrection and Pentecost, Andrew became a missionary, traveling to distant lands like Greece and the Black Sea. There he preached the gospel among pagans and philosophers, facing persecutions and challenges. His faith was so strong that he refused to deny Christ even when condemned to crucifixion. Interestingly, because he didn't consider himself worthy to die like Jesus, he asked to be crucified on an X-shaped cross, a symbol we now recognize as St. Andrew's Cross. For 2 days, even while suffering and hanging, he continued to preach, showing that faith can illuminate even the darkest moments. Andrew's life teaches us that, even without being in the spotlight, we can be powerful instruments to transform lives and spread hope. Sometimes, bringing someone to Jesus is the greatest legacy we can leave.
Bartholomew, also known as Nathaniel, was a disciple who started out as a skeptic. When Philip told him, "Come see a man who performed many miracles," his response was, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" But after hearing Jesus' words, "Behold, a true Israelite, in whom there is no deceit," Bartholomew surrendered his heart to Jesus and began following him. After Jesus ascended into heaven, Bartholomew dedicated his life to spreading the gospel in distant lands. His courage was rewarded as kings and common people alike turned to Christianity. However, this caused anger among the pagan priests, and tradition says they flayed him alive and beheaded him for refusing to renounce his faith. Despite the suffering, Bartholomew's faith remained strong, and he is remembered as a symbol of courage and perseverance for Christians around the world. His story reminds us that following Christ can be challenging, but with unwavering faith, we can overcome any obstacle. Matthew, also known as Levi, had a very different life compared to most of the disciples. He was a tax collector in Capernaum, a profession despised by the Jews, because it served the Romans and was seen as a betrayal of the people. Imagine the surprise when Jesus called him in the middle of his work, simply saying, "Follow me." Without hesitation, Matthew left everything behind: the coins, the ledgers, the comfortable life he had, and became a faithful follower of the Master. His calling was an invitation to a profound transformation, leading him from an isolated and rejected man to a living testimony of God's grace. In addition to being a disciple, Matthew was the author of one of the most comprehensive Gospels, especially written for the Jews. His text reveals someone knowledgeable of the prophecies and deeply impacted by the love and mercy he witnessed in Jesus. After the resurrection and Pentecost, Matthew went on mission, preaching salvation in regions like Judea, Syria, and Ethiopia. His courage to face tyrant kings and ancient religions showed that true faith breaks barriers and transforms realities. According to tradition, Matthew was martyred, possibly beheaded inside a pagan temple, for refusing to deny his faith and offer sacrifices to idols. He lived and died with his eyes fixed on Jesus and his heart fully committed to the mission. Matthew's story inspires us to believe that, regardless of the past, it is possible to start over, be transformed, and make a difference in the world through sincere faith and surrender. Philip, born in Bethsaida, the same city as Peter and Andrew, was one of the first to respond to Jesus' call. From the beginning, he showed himself to be a practical and approachable man, always seeking to lead people to the Savior, even when he didn't fully understand everything happening around him. During Jesus' ministry, Philip faced moments of testing, such as participating in the feeding of the 5,000, and was also approached by Greeks who wanted to meet Jesus. He was the intermediary, the one who built bridges between different cultures, an apostle with a vision beyond borders. After the resurrection and Pentecost, Philip preached in the region of in modern-day Turkey, facing pagan cultures and deeply rooted beliefs. His courage in freeing a young girl possessed by an evil spirit led to his imprisonment and, later, his crucifixion, upside down. Even while imprisoned and suffering, Philip did not give up. He continued praying, encouraging the believers, and according to reports, died singing, showing a vibrant faith that even death could not silence. Philip teaches us that pointing to Jesus with simplicity and dedication can transform lives and break down cultural barriers, making evangelism a living and practical mission. Philip was born in Bethsaida, the same city as Peter and Andrew, and was one of the first to respond to Jesus' call. From the beginning, he showed himself to be a practical and approachable man, always concerned with leading others to know the Master. His faith was simple but firm, even in the face of doubts and challenges. During Jesus' ministry, Philip had decisive moments, such as in the feeding of the 5,000, when he actively participated in distributing the food. He was also approached by Greeks interested in Jesus, showing his ability to build bridges between different cultures, acting as an intermediary. After the resurrection and Pentecost, Philip became a missionary in the region of Phrygia, now Turkey, where he faced strong resistance from pagan religions. His courage became evident when he freed a young girl possessed by an evil spirit, an act that led to his imprisonment and eventually to his death. Tradition says that Philip was crucified upside down, but even in the face of suffering, he never lost his faith. He continued praying and encouraging the believers, showing that true faith remains alive even in the hardest hours. Reports say he died singing, as a testimony of hope and surrender. Philip's life teaches us that the mission of pointing to Jesus can be carried out with humility and perseverance. No matter how big the obstacles, true faith always finds a way to shine and transform lives. His story challenges us to be courageous and dedicated in sharing the faith, even when the environment seems hostile or indifferent. Philip is an example of practical evangelism that transcends cultural and religious barriers. Thus, Philip leaves an inspiring legacy, to be a channel of blessing and transformation, showing that with simplicity and courage, we can make a difference wherever we are, always pointing to Jesus. Simon, called the Zealot, had a background different from most of the disciples. Before following Jesus, he was probably part of a revolutionary group that fought against Roman rule. His life was marked by political fervor and a fight against oppression, carrying a burning flame of rebellion. When he met Jesus, Simon made a radical transformation. He traded the sword for the cross and hatred for the peace of the gospel. This profound change shows how the power of encountering Christ can transform even the hardest hearts, turning rebellion into obedience and love. During Jesus' ministry, Simon walked in silence, learning and observing, gradually being shaped by obedience to the Master. His discreet presence reveals a man who, despite his intensity, knew how to become a faithful follower, committed to the mission. After Jesus' ascension, Simon went to preach in difficult regions such as Syria and Persia. There, he faced strong religious opposition but remained firm, alongside Jude Thaddeus, his mission partner, spreading the message of hope even in the face of persecution. Tradition says that Simon was captured and brutally executed, probably being sawn in half for refusing to renounce his faith and worship pagan idols. His brutal death is a testimony of courage and unwavering faithfulness, showing the price of true devotion. Simon teaches us that no one is beyond the reach of Jesus' transformation. Even those most fervent in human causes can find in faith a new purpose, a new fight that transcends violence and points to true peace. His story challenges each of us to abandon what separates us from God and embrace the mission of following Jesus with a determined heart, even if it means facing immense challenges. Jude Thaddeus was one of the least highlighted disciples, but his story is full of courage and determination. He dedicated his life to spreading the gospel, traveling alongside Simon the Zealot through hostile regions like Syria, Arabia, and Persia. He faced constant danger, but nothing silenced his voice. His ministry was marked by miracles and powerful conversions that disturbed local religious leaders. Jude Thaddeus' message touched thousands, including members of royalty, which provoked strong opposition and persecution from those who wanted to maintain religious control. Captured and imprisoned for his faith, Jude Thaddeus never renounced the gospel. Even in the face of threats and torture, he remained firm, preaching with passion and confidence in God. His life demonstrates that true courage comes from deep conviction and love for Christ. Tradition reports that Jude Thaddeus was brutally martyred, possibly alongside Simon the Zealot. His body is believed to have been buried in Beirut, and his memory became a symbol of strength and unshakable faith among Christians. Jude Thaddeus is known as the patron of impossible causes, and Christians around the world turn to him in times of despair, inspired by his perseverance when everything seemed lost. His life challenges us to believe boldly, to preach passionately, and to never give up. Even when facing rejection and misunderstanding, he proves that even those least remembered by history can leave an eternal impact. Jude Thaddeus is a living example that true faith transforms lives and awakens the courage to face any challenge, inspiring all of us to be brave in our walk with Jesus. Peter, originally named Simon, was a fisherman from the city of Bethsaida and brother of Andrew. Known for his impulsiveness and passion, he was one of Jesus' closest disciples. He is famous for his confident declaration, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," which revealed his deep faith even amid doubts. Despite his courage, Peter also had moments of weakness, such as when he denied Jesus 3 times on the night of his arrest. However, after the resurrection, Jesus restored him with love and gave him a fundamental mission to care for his church. Peter became the spokesman of the apostles, preaching boldly on the day of Pentecost. When about 3,000 people converted in a single day, he healed the sick and fearlessly confronted the Sanhedrin, leading the early church with firmness and determination. His leadership led him to travel to Antioch and later to Rome, where he strengthened the persecuted Christians under Nero's rule. Despite the threats, Peter remained steadfast, facing everything with courage and unshakable faith. According to tradition, Peter was sentenced to crucifixion and requested to be crucified upside down, not considering himself worthy to die in the same way as Jesus. This humility shows his profound transformation. S. Basilica in the Vatican was built over the place where it is believed he was buried, becoming a symbol of the church he helped to found. His legacy of leadership and faith remains to this day. Peter teaches us that even with failures and doubts, it is possible to be a pillar of faith. His life proves that Jesus seeks hearts willing to start over and serve with courage. John, son of Zebedee and brother of James, was the youngest of the 12 disciples. Along with his brother, he was nicknamed by Jesus, Son of Thunder, because of his intense and passionate personality. Over time, John became known as the Apostle of Love due to his deep connection with the heart of Christ. During Jesus' ministry, John was present at crucial moments, such as the Transfiguration, the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, and especially at the foot of the cross, where he was entrusted by Jesus to care for his mother, Mary. This mission revealed his faithfulness and sensitivity. John was the author of 5 books in the New Testament, the Gospel that bears his name, 3 epistles, and Revelation. His writings reflect a man who deeply understood the love of God and the hope of eternal life. After Jesus' ascension, John led the church in Ephesus, facing opposition from the Roman Empire. According to tradition, he was arrested and taken to Rome, where he was sentenced to death by being plunged into boiling oil, but miraculously survived, leading to his exile on the island of Patmos. On the island, John had heavenly visions that inspired the book of Revelation, a message of hope and victory for persecuted Christians. He lived to an old age, being the only apostle to die a natural death. John is an example of faithful and persevering love, who never gave up even in the face of the greatest difficulties. His life challenges us to stay close to the heart of Jesus, even when the journey is difficult. His story shows that true love is stronger than persecution, and that remaining faithful to the end transforms the life and legacy of a disciple. Judas Iscariot was the only one of the 12 disciples who did not come from Galilee, possibly from the city of chosen by Jesus to accompany his ministry. Judas lived side by side with the Master for 3 years, hearing his teachings and witnessing miracles. In addition, Judas was responsible for the group's money bag, managing the finances. However, little by little, his heart became hardened, influenced by ambition and perhaps disappointment, leading him to steal from the group's funds. The critical point of the story was the betrayal. Judas handed Jesus over to the religious leaders for 30 pieces of silver. On the night of the arrest, he gave Jesus a kiss on the cheek, a prearranged sign to identify whom to arrest. After realizing the gravity of his action, Judas regretted it and tried to return the money, but was rejected by the religious leaders. Desperate, he took his own life by hanging, ending his tragic role among the disciples. His betrayal and tragic end serve as an eternal warning to humanity. Being close to Jesus is not the same as following him with a sincere heart. Judas challenges us to reflect on true faithfulness. The story of Judas Iscariot shows that even someone chosen by God can get lost along the way, and that the consequences of choices carry eternal weight. In the end, Judas reminds us that a true disciple is the one who remains faithful, with a heart aligned to God's mission and will, not just physically present but genuinely surrendered. After Judas Iscariot's tragic departure, the disciples understood the importance of keeping the number 12 to continue Jesus' mission. So, two candidates were presented: Joseph, called Barsabas, and Matthias. Through prayer and casting lots, Matthias was chosen to take Judas' place. Matthias had followed Jesus from his baptism in the Jordan River until the Ascension, although almost anonymous in the biblical records. His faithfulness was unquestionable, being present at the important moments of walking with the Master. His selection symbolizes the importance of perseverance and faithfulness in following Christ, even without much recognition. Matthias represents the many faithful followers who quietly keep the flame of faith alive. Tradition indicates that Matthias preached in regions such as Ethiopia and Cappadocia, bringing the gospel to people who had not yet heard it. His ministry was marked by courage and commitment to the mission. He faced persecution and was martyred, possibly being stoned, and then beheaded for refusing to deny his faith in Christ. His sacrifice confirms that faithfulness may cost one's life, but it cannot be compromised. Matthias teaches us that God raises up the faithful, even the unknown, to fill the places left by those who fall, ensuring the continuation of his divine work on earth. His life is an invitation for every Christian to commit to Jesus' mission, being faithful and dedicated, even silently, knowing that God uses everyone to write the story of faith. The 12 disciples of Jesus were ordinary men, fishermen, tax collectors, zealots, brothers, and sons. Simple and imperfect. None were chosen for strength or wisdom, but for the courage and willingness to say yes to the Master's call. They left everything to follow Jesus, facing loss and persecution without turning back. Throughout history, each of them lived unique experiences of faith, overcoming, and total surrender. They witnessed miracles, heard teachings, and saw the resurrection, but also faced betrayal, imprisonment, and brutal deaths. What kept them firm was the living certainty that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. The brutal death of almost all the apostles, except John, was not for an idea but for a truth that transformed their lives forever. They became pillars of the early church, and their testimonies shaped the faith that has reached us, transcending centuries and borders. Today, you're watching this video live in different times, but face similar challenges, persecutions, fears, and pressures. The message of the apostles remains current and powerful. Jesus is alive and continues calling ordinary people to live something extraordinary. The word apostle means sent one. They fulfilled this mission with faithfulness and courage. Now, perhaps it is your turn to answer this call. The apostles' faith was not comfortable, but true and transformative. If they were able to give everything, even their last drop of blood, what are you willing to surrender for Jesus? The disciples' story is an invitation to start again, to trust, and to follow with courage, even amid difficulties. Comment now, I believe in Jesus. Subscribe to the channel, and share this video so more people can know the truth that transformed the world. The faith of the apostles is still being written in every heart that says, "Here I am, Lord, send me." The 12 disciples were not perfect heroes but ordinary men with flaws, doubts, and fears. They left everything behind: home, family, work, for a certainty that would change their lives forever. Jesus is the Son of the living God. It was this faith that made them say yes to the call, even without knowing the cost. They lived alongside the Master, witnessed miracles, heard profound teachings, and saw the impossible happen. But they also faced betrayal, imprisonment, torture, and brutal death. None of them turned back. This shows that their faith was not just a beautiful idea. It was a real experience burning in their hearts. Today, you who watch this video face your own challenges, pressures, and doubts. The apostles' story is a mirror and an invitation. Even in difficult times, Jesus continues calling ordinary people to an extraordinary mission, to live and transform lives. Apostle means sent one. They were sent, courageous and faithful, to carry the message that changed the world. And now, perhaps it is your turn to hear this call. Stand up and say, "Here I am, Lord, send me." What kind of surrender are you willing to make? If the apostles gave everything, even their last breath, why not us? This faith is not comfortable. It is not easy, but it is true and powerful enough to transform any story. Their legacy lives in every person who decides to follow Jesus, even when it seems difficult. So, leave a comment now. I believe in Jesus. Like, share with someone who needs to hear this truth, and subscribe to the channel. Voca Sabiana. Your faith could be the next to inspire the world. Remember, the story of the disciples is still being written in you, and in everyone who accepts the call. May your surrender be sincere and courageous, and may the journey continue, always with Jesus.